I was really thrilled in the fall to be contacted by Platform to Employment and to be able to be a part of that program. I was a part of that program as a behavioral health coach and providing counseling services, doing intakes and assessments on those individuals to assess their mental health and how unemployment had impacted their mental health and behavioral health. As part of that program, I also provided 3 separate groups to them where I talked to them about trauma, I talked to them about stress management, and ultimately helped them in finding the skills to cope with things mentally and emotionally. And that was a very successful element of the program. There was much feedback from all of the unemployment participants just in being able to have unemployment validated as a trauma. That was really the first time that was really brought to their attention. And we were thrilled to be able to validate that, and through that they started to see the hope that if they dealt with things emotionally, they might be able to change some of their behaviors. So that was a huge component of that program. And actually a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today is the same material that I talked to them about. So you're really going to be getting a lot of the same education, same information, same experience, and there's a lot of reasons that that's going to be helpful for you today. You're going to be able to make the connection that if it was helpful for those that were unemployed in that program, then you can start taking some of those elements back to work. So all of us are in some kind of mode of functioning. And the 3 modes of functioning are victim mode, survivor mode, and thriver mode. So where you were all kind of identifying, yeah, my client acts like a victim. And sometimes we use that to shame and judge because we're in our own reactivity. And sometimes they're really, in those trauma reenactments, and they're in that victim mode. It's a truth. So in that victim mode of functioning, they're pretty dominantly in that fight, flee, freeze response. If we're in that response, we are experiencing things around us as being victimizing. We experience ourselves as being a victim, which doesn't feel very good. If I perceive myself as a victim, I experience myself as being helpless, hopeless, powerless. I don't have choices. I don't have abilities. That's a pretty negative state to be in. And much of that has to do with those trauma reenactments that I talked about. They haven't learned how to get out of this victim mode of functioning. They haven't even entertained it as an option or know that it's an option. So it is within your role to say, hey, again, this might be trauma. And there's these 3 different modes of functioning we can be in life. It feels a lot better to not be in victim mode. It feels a lot better to have a sense that we're surviving. It feels wonderful to know that we're thriving. So in victim mode of functioning, they're struggling to feel safe. Things are experienced as threats. Their internal experience is threatening and feels unsafe. Their physical sensations might feel unsafe. Maybe as soon as they lost their job, they had a panic attack. So when they start to feel intense things in their body, that feels unsafe. It's reminiscent of that trauma. So they avoid, run, and hide from that. They fear the physical response. They certainly fear their emotions, their pain. The emotional wounds of that trauma become that perceived threat. It becomes what's unsafe. things in their environment feel unsafe. You are going to feel unsafe potentially for them. So if you are seeing clients that are in that reactive state that I talked about, the first line of defense is establishing safety. If you're not doing that, and guess what? You're certainly not doing that if you're judging them. If you're frustrated in your tone of voice, in your affect, remember they're hypervigilant. They're tuning into all of that stuff way more than you are. If you're not managing that, you're not fostering safety, what you say and do is irrelevant to them. It's that simple. And I've experienced that regularly as a counselor. It doesn't matter what kind of rapport I've established with them. It doesn't matter how safe, I've been with them. If they're active in that fight, flight, freeze, and I haven't tuned into that and said, let's focus on safety right now. What feels safe? Then I can waste a whole hour. They're not going to hear what I'm going to say. They're thinking about how and when they're going to get out of there. Or they're thinking about how I'm persecuting them in that moment. And what it might trigger for you all when you feel powerless to make change. Guess where that takes you? Right? We talk about the concept of powerless, but in victim mode is when we feel powerless. So if you as a helper are feeling powerless to impart change in their life, that's something for you that you need to work through emotionally and find a way to empower that individual so they're self-sufficient, they see their choices. Because I feel horrible when someone is trying to do it for me. So what happens in that drama triangle is there's an individual that's in that victim mode of functioning. They're the needy individual. They feel powerless, helpless. There's an individual in that rescuer role. Guess where you're going to tend to end up? Rescuer role. That's going to be your automatic home position. And that's for you to be aware of and how to manage and get out of that. There's always going to be a persecutor. Someone who is persecuting the victim, victimizing the victim, someone, something that the victim is helpless or powerless over. Those are all the stories, the drama stories. And when we fall in that drama triangle, we experience drama. It's drama. And if it's really intense, it's really dramatic. At the center of that triangle is drama and the battle of power and powerlessness. The victim's home position is to perpetually be powerless. The persecutor tries to hold on to the power and use that power over the victim. Or the persecutor might bring in that rescuer and say, you deal with them. The rescuer also has power. Hey, I'm here. I'm rescuing. I can help. I can make it better. And that feels good. The rescuer becomes very dependent on having victims, though. That's their home position and their role. And that means that the rescuer's home position and automatic impulse is to render that victim helpless. Here, I can be, look, I'll send you on your way. I'll do this for you. All of that is dysfunction. The goal in life is to learn how to step out of that drama triangle. We do so by having boundaries, identifying who we authentically are, because there is absolutely nothing that is authentic in that drama triangle. Even for the individuals that slip into that victim mode of functioning, and they're able later to reflect on it, they know, oh, that wasn't me, it didn't feel good, it didn't feel right. I don't like it when I do that. It's not really authentic. It stems out of survival. So your goal is to recognize when you're in that neuroma triangle. Are you persecuting? Are you rescuing? Are you allowing yourself to be a victim? Step out. We do that by, again, being authentic, knowing what's authentic here. What are my authentic responsibilities? What are my limitations and my boundaries? How do I take care of myself and be responsible for myself? And do that first, way before I'm trying to be responsible for somebody else. And how do I empower myself and empower that other person? That's how we step out of that dilemma.